Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. I'm Captain Logan.
And I am Vince.
Today we are recording from different places. We're not actually in the same room this time like we usually are, so forgive us for the not as good audio quality as usual.
Yeah, I'm like way over here, and he's like all the way over there.
But anyway, today we're going to talk about digital media, and we're going to talk about the direction that comics and movies, etc., are going as far as the whole digital thing, and how Vince and I feel about downloading things as opposed to having physical copies. And this is something we've talked about a lot on other things, but we've never just done a full discussion on it. And I think there's a lot of places to cover that we haven't covered before. So some of this will be a little bit of retread, but there should be hopefully some new material.
Yeah, I like new stuff. New stuff's good. Old stuff, in with the new, out with the bad. Anyway.
Vince, let's start with comics, because that's, inevitable for us anyway. How do you generally prefer to read a comic book? Because I know you do both. I know that you'll read a comic in your hand and you'll also read a comic on the computer. Which do you actually prefer?
I find for a whole experience, I prefer reading them in trade, which is odd. But for a collector's value, I prefer to own the issues. However, for speed, I can read them on my computer just quick.
That's interesting. Why?
And I think, see, when I read a trade, it feels like a book. There's weight to it. I have a whole story arc sitting in my hands, and it has legs. It stands up, or rather, it has a hind part. It sits in my hand. And, that was ridiculous. I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but I feel like I don't feel when I'm reading an issue, I feel like I could potentially break it, so I'm extremely ginger with it. And I've done that before. I, of course, am very, very much more durable than any issue I've ever read. Except for that titanium issue that I read once. That was anyway.
I tried out Marvel Digital Comics for a month. I paid my $10 and tried it out, and really enjoyed the access, of stuff I hadn't read before, and it was kind of fun to have, like a whole long run of 25, 30 issues of something that I didn't have and wasn't sure I'd ever really want to buy. The thing I liked about it really was getting to read things that I wasn't sure I would ever want to own, and then of course if you're me and you like to collect things, that's not going to stop you from buying it if it's awesome. You know what I mean? Because I would like to I'd like to have a hard copy if I really like it. So I'd pay my $10 and then read them, and then like Whedon's Astonishing X-Men, I read most of that run through there, and I hadn't read that before, and now I'd like to have that. So Marvel might get their money from me twice that way. You know what I mean? So it's smart. It's certainly smart marketing, and you're getting a lot of bang for your buck if you don't mind it. But I don't know. This is just me personally, but I find that I kind of get headaches reading on a computer too long, and I seem to have a habit of skipping over things. Like, because it's on a computer, for whatever reason, I want to read it faster. I know you said that you actually do read it faster, and for whatever reason, I feel like I want to read it faster, and then I find that I skip things, and my comprehension isn't as good. So for all those reasons, I certainly prefer to have a hard copy. And that's enough to make me hope that we never get to a point where, even single issues aren't still being, published every month, because, I don't want to read it on a computer and then buy a trade later. I think I would almost wait for trade rather than reading it on a computer, if single issues ever went away.
It's interesting you said the thing about getting a headache reading it. I used to, but I used to have a head. No, but there's these. I'm sure you know about these things. It's a computer disk or CD-ROM, whatever you want to call it. It has a word. There's a CD-ROM that has a bunch of like the first 10 issues of several different Marvel titles, like Spider-Man, Silver Surfer, Avengers, Captain America, whatever. And when I would read that thing, I thought the technology was just kind of poor. It wasn't a very fluid technology. It was or software
Oh yeah.
because you had to use it in a particular way in order to be able to maximize the usage of the book, and it would. I even thought about printing it off. I thought, it would cost a lot to print off all these things, but forget it. I'm tired of this reading this crap. I want to print it off.
Mm-hmm.
So, however, this CBR reader, these CBR files, I don't get a headache reading those. I'm not sure exactly as to the big difference between the Marvel technology or the Marvel software that I used and this software that I'm using now. But
well, I don't know how long ago you did Marvel software, but it's gotten a lot better.
Yeah, well, it was a while ago. I mean, I was still in high school.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, that's well before Digital Comics Unlimited, and since then, even since the initial introduction of that, I think they've upgraded the apparatus, and it's better now. But yeah, I actually like it quite a bit.
Yeah, the thing I'm using
for the
now,
most part.
it's just easy. The thing I'm using now. I mean, the comic book is it fills my screen. I can go up and down. If it's a 2-page spread, I can go left and right.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, it's just straight on the screen. So all I have to do is use the up and down arrows to move the page up and down, and then I use the actual page up and page down buttons to change the page. I mean, it's the simplest, most obvious way to do it, and it works beautifully for me.
Well, let's talk then about the industry some, because there's certainly, as we've said in the past, been a lot of talk about comics going mostly digital, and I mean I think that the trade paperback sales will still be around for a long time to come. But Vince, how do you feel about that? Like, if they stop doing single issues in favor of digital and then trade, because I mean, if they could make as much money or more than they're making now with it, it would save them a lot of money because they wouldn't have to print as much paper.
Well, I'll say that if I were to do digital comics, the only way I would pay for it is if I had a subscription to just reading general comics.
Yeah, I wouldn't pay $2 or $3 an issue to read digitally, and that's the thing that I think is really unfair.
Yeah, I cannot justify paying for something just to be on my computer or on my iPad or on my whatever, my Nook, my Kindle.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot justify it, mainly because.
See, I could if it was a fraction of the cost.
Well, yeah.
I can understand paying 50 cents or $1 for a song download, and I can understand paying $2 or $3 for like a TV show or a movie, but I can't see paying full price. Although I guess with songs,
is that what it is right now?
Although come to think of it, I guess with songs, if you pay $1 a song, you're getting to about what it costs to buy a CD.
You're getting a little bit more than what it costs to buy a CD.
Yeah, depending on how many tracks it has. Well, I mean, I think most CDs, your tracks are generally between 16 and 20, and I think your initial cost when a CD first comes out is about that much. Is anywhere between 14 and 16, $20. So they're it's getting comparable. But yeah. To answer your question, with iTunes, with TV shows, I think that they're very often like $1 per episode. Which, once again, if it's a 24, 26 episode season, you're getting close to potentially the price of a box set, although those usually come out closer to 30 or 40, if not $50 a piece.
Yeah.
So it's a little better that way. But man, I can't see spending, and I don't think they ever cost this, but I mean, like, when you get into movies, that's where it gets sticky, because I'm like, I'm not going to pay $15 to download a film.
Yeah. I mean, you go to Amazon and they have, what is it, about $5 rental fee, so you don't even get to keep it on your computer.
Yeah, for $5, yeah. Yeah, I don't like that.
So, it's a little sad to me.
I will tell you, and this is a little off the beaten path, but Amazon does have this feature that I didn't know about that I discovered when I was buying Christmas presents this year, because I think, like you, I bought a lot of Christmas presents on the internet. And if you purchase, I don't know if they do this with every movie, but I purchased a movie for someone, and they had this feature where up to 30 days after you purchase it, you can watch for free a digital download.
Yeah, they did that with me actually.
or
It's
rather
funny.
streaming. And what's neat about that is that if you're buying it, it's not all that cool if you're buying it for yourself naturally, unless you're just like, well, it's going to take 2 weeks to get here, but I can watch it today. That's kind of nice. But the other thing is, if you're buying it as a gift, it means you get to watch it without opening it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. You're like, I get to watch this person's gift, and I don't even have to be a jerk and open it and find a way to free grab it.
I actually got that with The Agony and the Ecstasy. I bought that for my dad, and I get an email that says your what was it? Your rental has been purchased, and I went, wait, what? And I'm looking around on my computer and I'm trying to figure out what is going on, and I thought, did I just spend full price on a frickin'?
That's exactly what I was worried about at first. I looked at Sarah when that happened. I said, Sarah, did we just pay a bunch of money for a rental? And then it turned out that it was just something you got as a bonus for making the purchase. So that's cool because it's extra.
Yeah, I was like flaming angry, man, until 15 minutes later, until I figured out what it was. Oh, the fine print says this. Okay, I'm aware.
But to get back on track, I think that what needs to happen is they need to make the prices comparable. Because part of what you're paying for, naturally, I mean, everyone knows this, it's obvious, part of what you're paying for when you purchase something physical is what it costs to make that thing. So if you're purchasing, I mean, it's like self-publishing. It's like my book. I mean, part of the reason that my book is $15 and I can't get the cost and I'd love to make the cost lower. I'd love to sell my book for $8 or $10. But the reason I can't get it any lower is because it's not mass produced. It costs more than half that just to make the thing. And you don't have that with digital because there's not any actual physical things that are being made, and yet you go on an iPhone and you go and you shop around and you look at DC and Marvel's digital comics that you can download, and they're nearly the price of buying an issue. Well, that's not fair.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is that they must be having people that are actually paying for that because they have them and they've kept the cost that much. I mean, like if no one was buying them, they'd have to drop the cost. So they've suckered people into doing this, and that's a problem.
I have nothing to say to that. That's why are people buying this? Maybe there is a potential that they're just keeping it available and it's still. I mean, it's obviously not beta testing, but I mean, imagine, figuratively speaking, it's testing out the market, testing out the software, so that people can get used to this thing. So
and then maybe they'll drop it later. Like right now, it's like a hot commodity or something.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that, or it could be one they're still publishing most of their issues by as hard copies. So if they start dropping down all that stuff, then why would anybody buy the hard copies if they can get it for cheaper online and just read it?
That's actually a really smart point. I hadn't thought of that. Because what you would hope is that if they stopped publishing single issues entirely, because of course there would be a lot of us comic book readers that would not love that. If that, and I don't know if it's ever going to happen where that'll happen entirely. I think that might be a last ditch effort if the companies really got in trouble. But who knows? I mean, there are people who think that this might happen, and I'm not an expert in industry, so I don't know. But what I was going to say is I think that if it were to happen, those of us that would prefer to get the hard copies would be at least a little happier if we didn't have to pay as much to read our comics. I mean, imagine if your digital downloads. Well, imagine if it was either just a subscription like you suggested, which is what I think it ought to be, or if it was just 50 cents $1 an issue, and then all of a sudden my costs get cut in much more than in half.
Yeah. Maybe Marvel in a way, because I assume we're talking about Marvel with the digital stuff.
DC started to do it too. They just recently, a couple months ago, announced they were going to start doing that. And I believe they've already started. And I haven't checked to see if their prices are comparable to Marvel's. I imagine they are, but I can't speak to that. I haven't looked.
Well, if Marvel and DC even, if they started charging a lower price for their digital stuff, and that stuff took off like gangbusters, and suddenly everybody was buying digital comics rather than buying hard copies, well, you can pretty much color any comic book store owner screwed. they're not going to be able to make ends meet, man.
Yeah, but of course, Marvel and DC probably aren't nearly as worried about that as they are their bottom line. I mean, maybe to a point, but there's a certain romanticism to comic stores. I mean, like, you and I like to go to our comic book stores and, talk to the guy behind the counter who actually knows something about comic books, as opposed to going to like a Barnes and Noble or something, which I think is at least for people like us, is maybe a little bit more of like a sterile atmosphere, right? Like, you go in and you pick up the books that you want to get already, but there's nobody there to like help you, find things, to make suggestions and stuff. You don't have like the person who just works in the comic book section, like the guy who just works in a video game section.
Yeah. Well, and even stores that have that, like Hastings now, and I believe we've mentioned it before, but I don't know if Hastings is anywhere other than the Midwest. But
yeah, they're not giant, which is good, because it's funny, because I was talking to Sid at Pop Culture the other day about that, and he didn't even know about that yet. In fact, he wasn't even sure what Hastings was.
That's amusing.
But yeah, so I don't know. They're not everywhere.
The Hastings that's here in Lawrence, I don't think that they actually have anybody that just works in like they have book associates, they have movie associates, they have music associates, but I don't think that there's anybody designated on comic books, because I called those people up, asked for somebody in the comic book section, and they said, yeah, sure. And then I said, hey, could you go check and see if you have one of these issues for me? I was in there a couple weeks ago. I know you had at least 4 of them. I just don't know if you have the one I need. So he goes and he looks, and he tells me on the phone, no, we don't have any of them. I go in there later that day, just because I wanted to go look around.
There it was.
And there was a whole group of them. In fact, they had 4 copies of 4 different issues of that series. And I thought, well, obviously the guy that I was talking to knew nothing about comic books. I mean, it's not hard to say, okay, Daredevil versus Punisher will be under the D's.
Yeah. There are real good reasons, I think, that you and I want so badly for independent comic book stores to stay in business. And I mean, that's the reason that at the end of every Geeks Not Nerds we say, support your local comic book store. It isn't just because, of that kind of romanticism we have about it, but I think it's also that, part of this is availability versus knowledge and knowing what things exist, because there are so many titles, and I mean people have problems with this all the time. You and I get a lot of messages of people asking us to tell them what comics are good and what aren't for them to be reading, because A, comics are expensive, so you don't want to buy the crappy ones on accident, and B, there's so many titles it's hard to tell which ones would even intrigue a person. And imagine a world where all you had were digital downloads and trades and big retail stores that sell the stuff. Like, who's going to tell you what you should be reading? How are you going to get, that's the other thing that I think really, you really get with an independent comic store, is you get that local guy who actually reads comics, and he can, he can kind of help push you, in the direction of what's good and what's not, and, at least tell you what things are.
Yeah. I mean,
I just think there's value to that, like real intrinsic value to that.
No, there is, because, And there are things that you can do, like say Marvel were to start putting out their digital comics, and they had something like Netflix has, which is you liked this, you might like this title.
Oh, that's true. Sure.
See, the problem with that, in my mind anyway, is that would it only be companies, or would it be like a company specific type of thing? Says, well, you like this Marvel title, so maybe you like this Marvel title. Well, what happens to all the indie guys?
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
screwed to the world. I mean, those guys, suddenly they can't even get out there because they're not being suggested. Now, maybe if we're supposed to be like net comics or something, as opposed to just Netflix. I don't know what your net pages.
That'd be cool, though, man, if that existed.
Net panels. That's a good idea. Net panels. Somebody get on that.
Yeah, we should do that. You shouldn't have mentioned that, because we should patent that. That's awesome. No, I'm kidding.
Time to edit.
I think, yeah, but you know what? That's also a really good point, Vince. What if, we didn't have independent comic book stores anymore, and then where would the independents go? Would Hastings and places like that, like, does Hastings have indie comics, Vince? Because you've been in there.
Yeah, they have things that aren't Marvel and DC, but they don't have a whole lot.
They probably don't have the smallest companies. You know, they probably have Dark Horse and Image and IDW. Hey, IDW is not even hardly indie anymore. Those guys are huge now.
They have all the major ones that I'm aware of, but I don't know that they have anybody smaller than that. And that's the thing, is that even regular comic book store owners can't really afford to carry that much in the way of indie comics.
Yeah, but they're the only ones that have very much of it.
See, the thing about the beauty of a comic book store owner is that I can walk in. The guy that owns my comic book store is named Joel. So I can walk in there and say, "Hey, Joel, I want this issue from Radical Comics or whatever."
Sure.
And he'll say, "Well, I can order that for you."
Mm-hmm.
But I go.
My guy does the same thing.
I mean, I can go into Hastings or I can go into Barnes and Noble, and suddenly there's a little less of a helpful attitude because they're not certain whether or not they can get it because they don't really understand Diamond.
Yeah, they don't even know what they're looking at. And I just think that this is the direction that a lot of different industries have gone, where it was mostly small town kinds of things that you got, and then you end up with, you know, these big companies that take over. And I can be okay with that as long as they hire people who know what they're doing.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think that they need to hire people who are comic book aficionado geniuses, hoo-ha.
No, they need to at least learn how to at least navigate Diamond.
Yeah. I mean, they need to know how to order things. They need to know how to organize comics. And they need to know, I mean, well, personally, the big thing for me is they need to have a working knowledge of the stock that they have.
Yeah,
not
sure.
necessarily in depth to say, well, okay, you like this, so maybe you like this. They can have that thing going on. But they also need to know how to navigate their own stock. I mean, you need to know where things are and how things are stocked, because recently I've been going into Hastings and I'll just find things like I found Detective Comics set in front of Batman, and I realized that they're both Batman titles, but they're different books. So therefore, I'm looking for Detective Comics Annual number 12, and all I can find is Batman Annual number 11 set behind Detective Comics number 10 or whatever.
Yeah, and you know, I know different comic book stores organize this differently, so this isn't to step on anybody's toes, but I've really come around to the idea that the very best way to organize comics in a store is alphabetical.
Yeah.
Because
even by company, maybe.
Well, no, you start by company, but see, that's a given. You have to go by company. But then within company, well, at least with DC and Marvel, you have to go company. And then I've seen it to where like some of the indies are kind of together. That's okay if they don't have a lot of books. But I'm just saying, and as long as the guy behind the counter can tell you where they are. But I'm just saying, you know, you get all your DC together, and then you know you don't have like your Batman section because people might not necessarily know. You know, you can't make the assumption that people walking in are going to know anything. If you make that assumption, it's difficult to sell stuff.
If I were to do that, I would have certain things. I would split up my stock. I mean, because obviously you're going to order extra books for an event.
Sure.
So you'll have some books sitting alphabetically, and then you'll have like your Marvel DC events section, because of course that's what they're doing. So you can.
No, that's true. In fact, you know what Sid does? Sid has an Ultimate section.
That's not a bad idea. Granted, Ultimate sucks now, but still.
He has Ultimate Marvel. Yeah, but they're still putting out enough books that he has actually a rack of Ultimate Marvel, and it's next to his regular Marvel, but it sits separately, and it's also alphabetical. But that way, you know where all the Ultimate is.
You know, the funny thing is, all of the books start with the word Ultimate, so therefore
they would all be in the U's. Yeah, but still, I don't know. I like that.
I mean, I suppose it really benefits him because he would have to stop at T and then begin again. I mean, because you would have this large section of Ultimate books breaking up the last part of your alphabet.
Yeah, and not only that, but it would be so large on the shelf that it would look to an outsider like it was the most important thing.
Yeah.
Imagine if somebody came, because again, you don't want to make the assumption that anybody knows what they're looking at. So if you walk into a store and you've never heard of Ultimate before, you might go, "Oh, that's Marvel's big event right now."
Yeah. As opposed to Shadowland, which was so good.
But anyway, we need to get to rants pretty soon. But ultimately, where yeah, that's just a word I use a lot. But yeah, Vince, where do you come down on this? Like, is it one of those things where you can't really just say yay or nay on the digital thing? Like, it's it's cool, but you want the option? Or, I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
I would prefer to have the option. The trouble is that we have the option. I think if we were given a good, viable digital option, then we would be out of luck for having a good, viable hard copy option because
Do you think that's happened with movies? This is maybe a little too late to bring this up. I wish we'd done this earlier, but I mean, like, because we've got that with Netflix and with other,
between Netflix and Redbox, Blockbuster's not doing well.
Well, not just that, but like, it's also got to be hurting like sales of DVDs.
I've heard that. I don't know for certain.
I know that illegal downloads have been hurting sales of DVDs quite a bit. There's a lot of real research on that, and it's not good for them. But I wonder how much like rent, because I think that there've got to be more people renting now than there were before, because it's actually a little bit cheaper now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, especially through Netflix and Redbox. So
because I'm watching so much. Well, yeah, well, especially if you're streaming and not just getting discs. Because I promise you, I'm air quotes renting well more than I ever used to be. I mean, like, when Netflix first started and you were getting discs, it was worth the price. But you're getting so much more bang for your buck now. It's only $1 more than it used to be, and I can watch stuff all day long.
Too true.
And so, that has got to be hurting DVD sales. There are box sets that I would have bought that I don't have to because I've got access. So then the question is, if the companies are we're getting enough of a kickback from that, then maybe it would be okay. But then how would that translate to comics? Like, if you had that kind of access, like we said, if you had your Netflix for comics, let's say, and it wasn't just Marvel has theirs, DC has theirs, but you actually have like this big, because the thing is, I don't think you can rent out comics the way you can rent out movies. Like, I don't even think it would be legal to do that. But if it were, if all the companies got together and came up with something like that, like, if they got enough of a kickback, it would be cool, but then the question is, would they?
I would use it. I mean, personally, if they had what I've just coined the term of net panels. If net panels existed, I would use that to read just a whole bunch of crap.
I would too. I would read the stuff that I wouldn't want to buy, and then I would probably still buy what I want. Yeah, if that makes sense. Like for my collection, there are still the Bat titles and things that I would still want to have them.
I would effectively do what I'm doing right now, which is I've pared down my buying list to just the things that support my collection. Because I was buying other things like, well, this looks interesting, let's try that over there. But because they've been so expensive in recent years, I've cut it down to the bare minimum.
Well, I applaud DC for what they've done. I applaud them for that. I mean, I still wish comics were cheaper than $3, but anyway. I don't know, because they were both, DC and Marvel were both really straddling the fence on, are we really going to drop to $2.99? And I really like that they're making a big deal out of it. That's very cool of them to do that, I think.
Yeah, DC can now stand up and say we are right where Image always was.
Well, kind of. I guess you're right about that. Yeah, it was so weird last week because Spawn 200 came out and it was a $4 book. And it was twice as big as Spawn usually is. And then I read Daredevil Reborn #1, which if you saw Late Night, I absolutely hated that book. And it was real, but not only that, but I mean, it was like the normal length, and it was the same price. And it was just funny where you're reading them because I was like, wow, I paid the same for this. That's weird.
Yeah, Walking Dead's always $3. Well, $2.99.
Walking Dead. I was going to ask you about that. Do you know if Walking Dead Weekly is the same price?
Yeah, I believe it's $2.99.
I wonder if that's any good. Like, who's writing that?
Walking Dead is just reprints of, or Walking Dead Weekly is just reprints of Walking Dead.
Is that what it was? I was wondering what that was because I was like, really? They're putting out weekly? Okay. Well, that's cool to do that for those of us that haven't been reading.
Yeah. So it's coming out weekly so that people can get caught up. I mean, I was told by somebody, and I don't know whether this is true or not, but I was told that the idea is that they're going to get caught up they're going to put it out weekly until they get caught up, and then they're going to intend to keep putting it out weekly. However, the person I was talking to made an excellent point when he said, could Robert Kirkman actually pump it out weekly?
Yeah, and would it be good enough? Like, wouldn't we rather have just a good monthly comic?
Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't even come out monthly. Like, sometimes we'll get 2 in a month, sometimes we'll get 1 in a month. So sometimes we'll get none in a month. So,
Well, Vince, let's go ahead and go to rants.
all right.
And would you like me to start, or do you want to start?
Hey, go ahead.
Okay, mine's going to be short. I just wanted to briefly mention that the 360 does this really strange thing that I've never understood why they do this and why they, what's practical about this. But Xbox 360, every game I've ever played on that system, when they have instructions or they have like people talking and you like set the game so that you have subtitles, the font is so freaky small it's really hard to read. Like, you have to have a really large TV to read the font, and I used to have my 360 hooked up to a, 20-inch TV. You can't play 360 games on a TV that small because you can't read anything. And it's always the same font, and it's always the same size, and it makes me wonder how exactly they integrate it in. It's almost like the text isn't, part of the actual game. It is, but it's almost like, it has some extra thing set up within the 360 where that's how they do their text. I don't exactly know how it works, but, I don't know. There used to be a time where your text in a video game was, part of the game, and so I don't understand that. It's
TV closed captioning.
See, that's what it looks like, except tiny. But anyway, it's impractical, and I don't know why they think, I'm a person with relatively normal eyes when I put my glasses on, and I have to squint. I can't read it. I don't know why they expect people to be able to read that. Anyway, that's my whole rant. That's it.
I have a similar rant this week. It's similar in the idea. It's about video games.
Oh, okay.
Recently, I've been trying out some more video games, and something that has always annoyed me, at least since I've been playing video games. I'm 1 year old, and this annoys me.
Since I've been playing video games.
But these load screens with stuff in between that make no sense. And what I mean by that is you get control of your character just long enough to meander from one part of the stage to the next.
And then you gotta sit around and wait.
Yeah, I've done that. I was playing Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2 on PS2.
Oh, don't do that.
Yeah, I sold the game after 3 levels. I said, you know what, this is crap. So I sold it to Game Nut and once. So
play it on 360 or PS3. It's great, but
you will go into a load screen to get to a place to where you can walk to another part of SHIELD headquarters to go into another load screen, and I've recently found that with one of the Wii games I was playing, one of the Zelda games. They give you control of the character just long enough to walk into the woods, and then you walk around some more. And then I'm thinking, do we really need load screens in between this stuff? Can you guys just have, created a next gen system or something? That would have been great. That's not fair. The Wii is fun. There are things on the Wii that I like. Super Smash Brothers, I've been playing that lately. That's a lot of fun. The one-player mode where you're doing the story mode, as ridiculous as the story is. But it's annoying to me.
If Mario's involved, story must go in air quotes.
That's something else that irritates me, actually. I was watching something on G4, and 2 people shot down Donkey Kong Country for having a crap story.
Oh, no.
One of the 2 people was Shigeru Miyamoto, and the other one was some guy that sounded like Christopher Walken. And he wasn't, but he sounded like him. And Shigeru Miyamoto said that Donkey Kong Country has an absurd story, and that's why the game is bad.
What?
And I thought, this coming from the guy that created Mario?
I can't believe he's saying that. Because, of course, he oversaw, New Super Mario Brothers, which has no story because it's a side-scrolling Mario game.
Yeah. Of course, he was talking about side-scrolling platformers, and Donkey Kong, look at the plot of Mario. A Lizard King captures a princess, and a plumber has to go save her. Of course, that's, the Great Gatsby right there. And then look at the plot of Donkey Kong Country.
Somebody steals his bananas, and he's got to go get them.
Yeah, a Lizard King steals bananas, and a monkey has to go get them.
Well, actually, to be fair, that's the original one. There's not a Lizard King in the new one.
Well, this was said before Donkey Kong Country Returns came out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Weird. Well, I don't know. I mean, and the thing about it is the whole going to steal bananas thing. Well, they're riffing on Mario. You know, I mean, they're riffing on it. It's funny. It's like Miyamoto doesn't get the joke. What? Okay, whatever.
No, he didn't seem pissed, or excuse me, he didn't seem angry. He just seemed, I don't. He just thought it was bad, and I thought this guy didn't know what he was talking about.
Yeah, that's weird. But nobody plays side-scrolling platformers for the story.
Yeah,
Heck, I don't play 3D platformers for the story.
Because, of course, I was enthralled by Jack and Daxter's story. A little mouthy rat on the back of a guy who looks like a humanoid rat. Here we go. This is a great story here.
Well, Vince, we are all out of time, buddy.
I want to rant about Nintendo more.
Oh yeah, we could have done a whole half hour on that. Well, hey, thanks a lot everybody for listening to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast, and we'll see you once again next week. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.
See you later.